it's Roger, thanks for dropping by. This particular Dendrobium moniliform variegata has been in several of my videos, but this morning when I was watering I just noticed out the corner of my eye you could just see it peeking out between the leaves. The plant behind's got a flower on. Let's go and get it out where we can see it better. There we go. It is a tiny little flower. But a lovely red colour. That's about as close as I can get with this thing. And that's pretty close. Anyway, it's got one there that's just come out. There's another one lower down, thinking about it, probably by tomorrow. And the plant itself is Maxillaria Sophronitis, although apparently it's now called Ornithidium or something like that, and I suspect if I went out for a coffee by the time I came back they'd call it something else. The men in the white coats and the goggles just keep changing the names. That's life. Anyway, this plant likes to creep. It has a very creeping habit, so if you put it in a pot it will do its best to get out and it won't take long. It has a branching habit, creeping rhizomes and a branching habit. If you look here at the top of this rhizome, it's crept away from that bulb up to this one and then split into two new growths. Now I've seen this one grown as specimen plants in several different shapes and forms, but the best one I ever saw, it was planted in a pot, but then the pot was actually surrounded with a wire mesh ball, and the ball was filled with, well, probably moss and bits of bark and things like that. And basically, as the plant grew out of the pot, it came in contact with the ball around the pot and managed to get roots in there, and eventually it just ended up as almost a perfectly circular ball covered in those tiny red flowers. It got best in show. It got best species. I think it got best everything ever. But it was a spectacle, an absolute spectacle. Now the goal with this thing is to get it to branch. If it was a fuchsia, I'd pinch the ends out and away it would go. But it's not, it's an orchid. So what I've done with this one, when I got it, it was in a pot. And it wasn't in very good shape, quite honestly. Most of it was out of the pot. And of course, each pseudobulb, each joint, roots are pushing out and have nothing to go into. And in a really high humid atmosphere that probably wouldn't be a big deal. But anyway, it was looking a bit sorry for itself, and when I took it out of the pot, the actual roots in the pot weren't too clever either. So I took the back end of the plant off and took the two good growths that I could find and mounted it on a piece of cork bark. That wasn't that long ago, so I think it was back in October last year, something like that. And at that particular time, it was just pushing a few flowers out. Those flowers, according to my records, didn't finish until into December. So it's quite a prolific flowerer, but it does have a tendency to flower on and off. To actually get a mass blooming, you need mass new shoots, so that all of the pseudobulbs come together at the same time. I'm going to stop for a minute now because our glorious weather has decided to chuck it down. I'll be back shortly. Okay, quick coffee break over. Flipping rain. Gets on your wick. Still, that's the UK for you. And on the subject of being in the UK, we talk about light. Here in the UK in the winter, we don't see a lot of that. Basically, the sun comes out once in a blue moon. There is such a thing, which there is actually. Anyway, this little beastie comes mainly from cloud forests, Venezuela and the top half of Colombia, I believe, although I haven't actually checked recently. It's a cloud forest dweller, so, well, basically high humidity and not too warm. But it's rumoured that it's also found on the edge of the cloud forest, so it is light tolerant, or more light tolerant than some cloud forest dwellers. And you can usually tell by having a quick look at leaves. If leaves are quite thick and quite fleshy, as a general rule, it'll stand a fair bit of light. Okay, this one's becoming established at the moment and it's about halfway up in the plant room. There's not much sheltering it, so it does get a reasonable amount of light, for me anyway. Once it gets going and I can see roots attaching and it gets a good hold, it'll gradually get acclimatized to more light and end up probably near the roof. The idea with this one is to get a mat, to get a real dense number of pseudobulbs really close together, and then every time they branch and every time they push out new growths, they're more tightly packed. And when you see small flowered orchids tightly packed together, all flowering together, you get that mass blooming, which is what this one's all about. It is absolutely stunning when you can get it to do that. But it does flower on and off frequently, so you know, it's often in flower, which is pretty good. Some only flower once a year and then only last a couple of weeks. This one keeps going on and off throughout the year. Okay, it likes to branch. My idea with this one is, you can see most of the new growths are at the top, although there's a few little new growths lower down. There's sort of one in there. I think there's one down the side here somewhere I noticed. Probably can't see that in the dark. Anyway, the idea is these higher up pseudobulbs with their branch, once they get roots, will get broken off. Sounds a bit drastic, but otherwise it's just going to climb out over the top of that mount and head out into space. And into space it's not going to do quite as well as it will where it's actually got something to get a hold of. So I'll break those pieces off and poke them in lower down, and then the new growths are starting nearer the bottom, will push up through, they'll branch and they'll get more and more pseudobulbs until eventually I get that nice dense effect, which is what I'm after. Okay, so that is Maxillaria, or whatever it is now, Ornithidium. The chances are I've just been for a coffee break. They've changed the name while I was out. Anyway, hope you like this video. If you do the thumbs up and do all that sort of thing. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. It helps with my profile, he says. Thanks for watching. See you next time.